This is SciByte, episode 122 for March 4th, 2014. Hi everyone, and welcome back to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science podcast, live on a Tuesday and fresh on a Wednesday over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Heather. Hey there, Heather.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey, Heather, happy science to you.
Happy science.
So what are we going to talk about tonight?
Today, we're going to take a look at possible evidence of Martian life, 3D printing a heart, Tetris, spacecraft updates, curiosity news, and as always, take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
That sounds like a packed show, Heather, so let's kick it off with the news. What? I said with the news. All right, Heather, where do we start tonight?
All right, a team of scientists have now found evidence of past water movement through a Martian meteorite. So it is one that has landed here on Earth. So it brings up the whole debate in the scientific community over life on Mars all over again. So there is a team that has recorded very specific structures and compositional features in a meteorite from Mars that suggest possible biological processes may have been at work hundreds of millions of years ago.
Wow.
So this is one of those things where it's not poor Curiosity or Spirit rover or, Opportunity. Any of the little rovers, they haven't necessarily done that. But this is specifically one on Earth. So this is a meteorite. Something hit Mars, so many years ago, and it knocked up a chunk of the Martian surface. And then it flies through the solar system for a little while, smashes here on Earth. And so then we can tell that it's from Mars because you can tell specific materials and the composition of the oxygen atoms within the minerals. And you can actually get little pockets of trapped Martian atmospheric gas. So all of these things you can go through and say, all right, yes, this is a Martian rock. And actually in that rock, now that we're looking at it more in depth, now the Martian meteorites that we see here on Earth, we can give a whole new kind of perspective on them because we have the equipment and the technology to look at these in so much finer detail that we can stick on a poor rover driving around Mars. So in 1996, people may or may not remember, there was the Allen Hills 8401 meteorite that got the whole world a buzzing saying, we have discovered life, ancient fossilized little
I remember that for sure.
On Mars.
Yeah.
And there's a big debate here and there, and who do you ask gives an answer of, yeah, I think so, or haha, they're funny. And so this new meteorite has sort of brought up this whole discussion again, where it was a 30-pound meteorite, and it's deep inside of it, called Yamato 000593. Essentially, it's telling you where they found it, and then this was actually discovered in 2000. So it'd be the 00, and then it's the 593rd rock found that year. But so 12 million years ago, that's when it got ejected off of Mars. It actually fell in the Antarctic. This is one found in the Antarctica about 50,000 years ago. And it was just through the process of ice going down and coming back up in its movement into specific areas. Means that we just kind of discovered it, per se. Mm-hmm. And they have two different sets of features that they're seeing. They're seeing little tunnels and micro-tunnel structures that thread the way through the rock. And they can actually see them with their curve, their undulating shapes, consistent from what we see here on Earth that is biologically features.
Okay, yeah, things you'd see from a biological life. Something that they would leave behind.
Yeah, something squirmy.
Yeah, yeah.
Something squirmy.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, well, it's very similar to that. Now, there's another set of features in addition where it's these little, really tiny spheres that are also similar to a rock, a Martian meteorite found in 1911 in Egypt. So it's similar to that, and it's also similar to what we see in enriched carbon. We can see that in the areas. So we're seeing similarities between this rock and another rock from Mars. Now, the one in Egypt, it's all about, okay, well, these two things were here on Earth, but how long had they been there, and could there be some Earth contamination onto that? But now that we've seen it in both places, on both rocks, then it's slightly more likely that that is something similar that actually occurred on Mars, not here on Earth at all.
Okay.
So
that's pretty compelling.
Yeah, so we see these, we're like, okay, well, it's very biogenic in nature. So it's another possibility. It's showing, tantalizing features that say, wow, I think that may have been formed by biology. They're definitely evidence of water through clay. They can see that most definitely. Of course, this would be the 6 bajillionth discovery of, yes, there's water on Mars. But it's all about life would be where there is water.
So what you're saying is it could potentially be life, but not as we know it.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Or as we know it, sort of.
Oh, as we might expect it.
Yes. As it might be similar to here on Earth.
Yeah. Well, very interesting.
So it's looking, so now it's all about, all right, now, do these specific features that are there, even if we can see them with much better equipment here on Earth, still poses a real problem in analyzing those because they are so small. So it's sort of, we can't get in there and really put these tiny structures through the ringer.
Right.
But, so it's no smoking gun, but it is further evidence that says, hey, it really looks like there are interesting things going on at one point. These look like they might be fossilized Martian squirmy things.
Sounds like good inspiration for a future rover design just to send up there to investigate such a thing. You never know.
You never know.
All right, Heather, well, why don't we take a quick little break right here? I didn't even mention it on Linux Unplugged today, but I'm going to give the SciByte audience the last chance, the last take to go over to teespring.com/last300. We've got the hoodie and the t-shirts and the ladies' tees over there. Brand new Linux Action Show 300 logo. Each shirt comes with a challenge coin. And we're going to probably shut it down in another 100 or 2 or 3. I'm not sure because we have to buy the coins in batches. And so we think we're probably going to, we've reached our goal. So we'll probably shut it off probably around 12, 13, 1400. I'm not sure because everything up to 1500, then we keep all of the remaining coins. So everything that's below 1500. But I actually kind of want a lot of coins. So I'm not quite sure. We're still kind of figuring it out. But man, this new logo is so great. I've already got my sweatshirt. But you can grab one too just for a little bit longer by going to teespring.com/last300, probably the end of the week or so. I'm not sure. It kind of depends. If people jump on it, then they might go sooner than later. But all this is going to fund the new studio renovations, which we're beginning this week. So teespring.com/last300. Go grab yourself something nice, and then you get to wear some swag, and you get a challenge coin, which I admit probably not useful in a lot of scenarios, but it's still very cool. And if you ever did get into an identity challenge situation, you'd have the heads up because you'd have the challenge coin, and just in case. So teespring.com/last300. All right, Heather, what are we going to talk about in the news bite?
Alrighty. There has been heart surgery on very young children, but recently a surgeon was able to map out his whole surgical procedure with a near exact model of the patient's heart printed on a 3D printer.
Whoa.
This little 14-month-old was born with 4 different congenital heart defects. And so that all the different doctors, coming at this, obviously was going to be proving a challenge, and they were all trying to figure out and decide, hey, what's the best way to go about, cutting and suturing and trying to plan out the best ways to go through and fix this.
Yeah.
So what they were able to do is actually work with radiologists and provide data that they could use with a 3D printer.
Wow.
Now, CT scanning actually pretty much is a very good, pretty good thing.
A good image, a good 3D image.
Yes, because it scans in slices.
Oh.
It scans one slice, then it goes up and scans another slice, and that's exactly how a 3D printer essentially would be working this.
Right.
So they were able to, scan the heart and make a quote unquote copy of it in 3 different pieces at twice its normal size.
Yeah.
But they were able to make it with this very flexible plastic. They called it Ninja Flex. Generally, 3D printing is made of stuff like in Lego bricks, so very hard.
Yeah.
But in this specific one, it was very flexible. It allowed them to say, all right, they could bend it and flex it and lay out very detailed, how they were going to cut it and put it together and sort of go through the whole surgical procedure. Yeah. Very planned out.
Huh. This makes so much sense, right? Because you essentially can do a trial run of the surgery.
Yes. And so with all of that, they were able to print the heart. That took about 20 hours, about $600 worth.
Okay. So this is like a serious printing. So they get hopefully highly accurate with that.
Yes. Now, the 3D printer that if you watch the video in the show notes, we have one of those in our lab that some of the guys got. We're able to do a little bit of 3D printing. So that is pretty cool. 20 hours doesn't necessarily surprise me, especially with the kind of detail that they would be going for.
Sure, yeah. I could definitely see that because I know that even some of the more casual ones can take hours and hours and hours. So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And so, but it allowed them to do all of this in a single surgery. They were able to reduce the amount of cutting and suturing they had to do, which also led to a much quicker recovery. And so it was pretty much all down to just that one surgery, which happened on February 10th. The little guy seems to be doing just fine now.
And I agree with Nogel in the chat room too. It seems like only a matter of time until they've probably printed a real one, and also until they're printing all kinds of parts of the body, right? I mean, lungs or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, they've been hinting at these type of things, and we talk about them sometimes where they're trying to, 3D print or replicate these organs. But in this case, it was specifically something that is happening right now, can help them. It's, we're a little ways away from having replicated organs.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was something that they could print it, have everything laid out and be like, okay, we're going to do these steps in this order exactly. And have a hands-on, view of what everything's looking at.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because like Hollywood does this, before they build a large model scale, they'll build up a little mock-up scale and, do a first run on that. A lot of industries do this, the aerospace industry does this. Why not the medical industry? Awesome.
Well, now they're stepping into the fray.
Yeah. Oh, Heather, good news. The band's here. Come on in, guys. Let's go. Okay, Heather, what are we talking about in the 2-Byte news?
All right. Everyone who loves Tetris, good news.
All right.
A recent study has shown that it actually helps reduce cravings. For dieters or smokers or
no way.
anything of that. Yes. So researchers created these two groups to study. One that played Tetris for about 3 minutes, and the other group was told, yeah, it's loading. They were given a loading screen for 3 minutes.
Oh, torture.
Yes. So then afterwards, they were able to, rate your craving for cigarettes, for food, for alcohol, based on, the strength of the craving, the intrusiveness. And the people who played the Tetris showed a 24% reduction in those cravings.
Wow.
And the people who just sat at a loading screen didn't get any kind of a reduction.
Was it Did they imply that it was like because of like taking the mind off of the cravings? Like you're busy, you're preoccupied?
Yeah, it was, this feeling of controlled, motivated, that your brain is in that sort of, in that function.
In that zone, in that mode.
In that zone, which makes sense because you play those kind of games and suddenly you're like, oh, wow, that was 2 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you're like, I forgot to be hungry.
Yeah.
I forgot to be this or that. I forgot that I needed to leave for work.
Brain is ignoring those signals because it is busy working on something important.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So, and this is one of those things where they're actually kind of excited about this because it is something that is easily accessible, and it can replace the feeling of, that stress caused by the craving. Possibly, it's not out of the realm to be able to use it at work, use it at home. Now, this is not an excuse to tell your boss that SciByte told you to play Tetris at work, just so you know.
Well, scientifically speaking, boss.
Yeah, scientifically speaking, this is helping me. Smile. Now, of course, scientists, would really prefer that they'd be like some healthy activity, like exercise would be able to reduce those kind of cravings, but it's what they call a neutral activity. Okay. It has a really positive impact, and it's not that negative in of itself. So for now, it's a good alternative. So if you have these kind of things going on where you're trying to, quit something,
has this
kind of cravings.
If it's bugging you, if it's distracting you, bust out a little Tetris on the smartphone or something.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say. Reach for your phone, have it set up.
Yeah,
and you too can have a good excuse to play a game.
Maybe that's why Flappy Bird was so successful. Well, heads up, Heather, watch out. Here's some incoming communications. All right, we got a little viewer feedback, didn't we?
That's right. I got an email from Martin Lufetti sending me a article that was publishers from Springer and IEEE were removing over 120 scientific papers from their subscription services after a researcher discovered they were computer-generated nonsense.
Oh, no.
Yes. So over the past 2 years, these kind of computer-generated papers have made it into more than 30 different published conference proceedings between 2008 and 2013. 16 appeared in Springer, more than 100 appeared in the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, and it's all of these different things came up. So even some of the fake papers have authors with actual affiliations that the authors pretty much discovered that they were attached to it when they were notified, hey, you have a paper here. They're like, we have a what, where?
Well, you were attached to it.
Yes. One author was like, I have no idea why. I was just notified that I had submitted something. I don't know why they thought I was. So there's actually a program that was created to automatically detect these kind of manuscripts because it sort of randomly combines all these strings of words to produce fake computer science papers. This program was actually created in 2005 to prove that conferences would accept meaningless papers. It was sort of to maximize their amusement. They created this program that would spurt out this fake paper.
Wow.
And they wanted to submit it just to see what would happen.
Right.
And it happens occasionally. In fact, it's like it's free to use, it's free to download. Goodness only knows how many people have done it for whatever purpose they decide to.
Yeah.
But they're pretty easy to spot once you actually really look at them.
Yeah.
And sort of that program, they were able to take it and sort of tweak it and be able to use that to identify, to go through and scan all these papers and be like, hey.
They kind of just did the reverse. And
that's what they're doing. And now they're doing the reverse to be able to identify these. And what was it? They were able to, there was actually, somebody had used this to generate 102 different fake papers by this one fictional author. So you see how easy it would add these fake papers to the Google Scholar database.
Mm.
And they were actually able to kind of upvote this person, so they actually started looking like a good author.
Like people were giving them approval or reviews.
Yes, they'd had so many different papers submitted, and it was okay. And they were able to kind of create this fake person with all these...
With a good reputation, essentially.
With a good reputation that was computer spit out papers.
Wow.
Now, there's been a long history of, journalists and researchers, just putting in spoof papers just to see what would happen. And sometimes it's for kicks and giggles, and sometimes it's to be able to let them know, like, hey, there is... some weakness, there is some quality control here needed. You guys need to, like, wake up, because guess what I just submitted? Gobbledygook.
Right. Gotcha.
Yep.
Wow. Well, thanks.
And it's really easy to see, so you shouldn't try this to turn in homework. Because guess what?
They'll probably, if they're paying attention at all.
Yeah, your professor will be paying attention.
Well, thanks, Martin, for sending that in. You, too, can send in some feedback. Just go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and click the contact link and choose SciByte from the drop-down. Or you can probably tweet it at Heather at JB_Mars_base. But, Heather, I think it's time. Now, I have to warn you. This is either going to create a resonance field which will destabilize our transwarp conduit, which we are currently using to route Skype through, or it's a spacecraft update. Let's find out, Heather. Here we go.
Okay.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah, I gotta get that. I don't even know why I have a resonance creator right here. It's just for this. It's a Borg thing. It's a long story. So what are we talking about in the spacecraft update?
All right. First of all, we'll start with the poor little U2 Chinese lunar rover.
Uh-oh, not good news? Well,
they actually were able to discover what happened.
Okay.
It was a control circuit malfunction in the driving unit, and that's the unit that's required to lower the little rover's mass so that, it can... That's what was not being able to do that is what prevented it from entering its second, its dormancy on the second lunar night. And that unit also helps them maneuver the panels into the best position to get the maximum bang for their buck on the solar panels. Panels had to be folded down in order to kind of help shield the rover from the lunar night, because it gets down to below minus 180 degrees C. It's minus 292 degrees Fahrenheit, below zero. So, that helps trap in what little heat they can put out, which means it helps save the electronics. Somebody in the chat room asked, did it survive? It survived Lunar Night 2, if you recall, a week or two ago. The Chinese were actually able to say, yes, we heard from it. And also, you actually heard first from a whole bunch of amateur radio operators saying, yes, we heard from it. Unfortunately, they were not able to resolve the issue before Lunar Night 3, which they went to sleep at February 22nd, 23rd, respectfully. So it'll be another 2 weeks after that before the Lunar Night is over. And we'll be able to see, will it survive a second lunar night in the cold without being able to do it. And at this point, it's now near its 3-month lifelong expectancy, where they said, we expect this will last 3 months. And now we're nearing that 3-month anyway.
That is rough. That is a rough shake.
So we'll see if they can actually last the night. If it lasts the lunar night again, then hopefully they will have thought up some way to help that control circuit.
Come on, little rover, you can do it.
Yep. They were able to do some in-place observations. They were able to use it to get some ground-penetrating radar, take some panoramic pictures, infrared imaging, because all of that other stuff was working just fine. So they're able to do some in-place scientific analysis.
Okay.
They just weren't able to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
So we'll see another 2 weeks if it survives, if we can hear back from it, and if they're able to do something to be able to get that circuit malfunction fixed.
Okay. Well, we do have a little bit of kind of good news, some Kepler news.
Yes, poor Kepler. It stopped having enough the ability to point precisely enough.
Right.
And so they ended the first mission of that. However, we've mentioned it before, and I will mention it again. There is so much back data they're able to go through. And they're able to go through and discover 715 new potential planets in the data.
Wow. That is incredible.
305 different star systems, which this brings the total number of potential planets to almost 1,700. Now, almost, let's see, 4 of them were planets about 2.5 times wider than the Earth. Another 4 planets have been added to be in the habitable zone, where water may exist in liquid form.
Interesting.
So, number of Earth-sized planets increased by 400%. So we're finding some really interesting planets where, looking for the possibility of, are you in the habitable zone? Can you have water? So we have a number of those popping up and a slew of other possible planets that have come up. So we will continue to hear good information from the data of Kepler.
I didn't, it's funny. I didn't hear a lot of places mention that. People kind of mentioned NASA discovered a whole bunch of planets. They didn't really mention sort of the whole context around the Kepler program, but that's okay. It's all right. At least the science is getting done.
Yes.
Well, while we're up in the sky and all these types of things, up in the stars, as it were, maybe we should do a curiosity update. Are you ready?
Let's go.
And liftoff of the Atlas V with Curiosity.
Oh, there it goes!
Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
That's a wheel!
All right, Heather, how is our favorite rover doing?
Alrighty, they have now reached an area where orbital images have kind of piqued researchers' interest because there's some patches of ground with striations oriented in all the similar direction, which means there's layers.
Ah.
So they're able to pause to capture some imagery on February 20th. Completed, a second 100-meter, 300-foot drive in reverse. So they've started driving part of the time in reverse. They're able to drive, to save the poor wheels, give them a little bit of a break, so possibly they're not beat up quite as much.
Yeah.
So they're going to occasionally drive backwards and then they'll occasionally drive forward to kind of help minimize that damage. And so they're able to pause, take some beautiful panoramic imaging. I think the image is actually interactive on one of the pages, I want to say. Where you can, on the NASA page, where you can kind of zoom in.
Oh my goodness, Heather, this is crazy.
Yes, it's one of those where NASA lets you zoom in and pan around, and it's really awesome, and you must check it out. Show notes.
I'm just hanging out on the surface of Mars right now.
Yep, everyone wants to.
Yeah, that's great.
So they're headed towards the next goal that they have is a next scientific waypoint called Kimberley, which lies about a half mile ahead, and it has features where there's striations, there's these layers that they can see where researchers plan to kind of stop for a little while and actually do some scientific investigations, possibly do some drilling. So they've had a pause here, taken some pictures on their way to their next big location.
Okay. Well, I look forward to hearing more as the little rover continues on. Jump in the time machine, Heather, because it's time to go back. Here we go.
Okay.
Actually, not so bad. I'm kind of glad. Only 64 years ago, March 6, 1950. I didn't want to scare you, Heather, but I forgot to fuel up the time machine. So what happened 64 years ago this week in science?
Silly Putty. It was introduced as a toy by Peter Hodgson, a marketing consultant, who packaged out these 1-ounce portions of material. Now, it's kind of funny. This is one of those things where the original discovery was made by a scientist who was combining oils and acids in a laboratory at General Electric, researching methods to make synthetic rubbers. Now, he wasn't particularly seeing anything that he was going for, but I believe it was one of those things where it was left in a overnight.
Yeah.
In a beaker, and he came back and he's like, this is kind of weird. Passes it around the office as a curiosity, and then somebody saw it, went, aha, light bulb, money, dollar signs.
So you're telling me right now that Silly Putty was sort of an accident?
Yes.
How did I know? Heather? Well, there you go. And it's only been with us for
64 years of kids losing Silly Putty in carpets.
Well, I will be celebrating that tradition very soon. My kids have been asking me for Silly Putty. I had Silly Putty for a little while in the house, but we kept it under tight control. As Silly Putty requires, Heather. Okay.
Yes.
Well, let's look up into the sky as I recalibrate the SciByte 2000. All right, Heather, what do we got up there tonight?
Alrighty, on Thursday, March the 6th, about an hour after sunset, you're going to see the Aldebaran, the orange giant star, to the upper left of the moon. You'll see the Pleiades star cluster to the upper right. So a little bit of a fuzz over the upper right of the moon. But the orange star to the upper left is not Mars. It is actually a star. On Friday, March the 7th, now that orange giant star Aldebaran is below the moon. Rolling into Saturday, March the 7th, around dusk. Now the first quarter moon is going to be sitting above the constellation Orion. And Jupiter will be to the upper left of the moon. And now we're going to the planets.
Dun, 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 dun. We got something new for the planets, too, for you video viewers. I'll try to show some of these as we go. All right, what's our first planet, Heather?
All right, Venus, the morning star. You will see that before and during dawn. Venus is in the southeast.
Okay. All right.
Yep. On to Mars at 10 p.m. You don't have to get all of these all at once.
Oh, it's kind of fun. I like to watch it pan because you can see where you can, if you watch the video version, you get to see where it goes from one planet to the next.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So about 10 p.m. we've got Mars rising in the southeast with Spica, the blue-white variable star, to its 6 degrees to its right. That's about 1 fist width, if you hold your arm at arm's length.
Okay.
They're at their highest point around 3 or 4 a.m. with Spica now to the lower right of it. Those are always a good pair to view because Mars is that orange-red color and Spica is that blue-white color. So there's nice contrasting colors there.
I see that.
And we got Jupiter.
Hey!
The only planet visible in the evenings now, high in the southeast. You see a bright thing out there at the evening, southeast? Definitely Jupiter. Crossing nearly overhead in the mid-northern latitudes about 8 or 9 p.m. and setting in the west before dawn. And Saturn is out there too, rising about 11 p.m. or midnight. Will be the highest at the south, about the beginning of dawn. Way to the far left of Mars and Spica.
Well, that's a pretty good sky, Heather. Is there anything else we want to cover this week before we run?
Yes. Unfortunately, it is daylight savings time once again.
Oh, yes, that's right.
This is where we, quote, spring ahead, even though big parts of the country are trying to remember what spring is. So we are, quote unquote, losing an hour.
Right.
So 1 a.m. becomes 2 a.m. suddenly. So don't forget to, your phones will remember, but your alarm clocks may or may not. And sadly, push that button to put your clock ahead an hour.
That's always a tough one, too, because it's Sunday and I have Linux Action Show in the morning, and that's a double whammy when you lose an hour.
Yes, and that is on Sunday.
Yeah, March 9th.
Yes.
Sunday, March 9th, we lose an hour. But we will have, this is kind of handy. This is something we do. We have jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar, and guess what? Automatically adjusts for all that kind of stuff. Just check that for your show times. Heather, thanks for the great show.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for tuning in this week's episode of SciByte. Guess what? We'd love to hear from you. You can go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click that contact link, and choose SciByte from the drop-down, or tweet Heather, JB_Mars_base on the Twitter. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of SciByte. We'll see you right back here next week.